This is KGW News at noon.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Brenda Braxton. We do have some local headlines to get to you this afternoon. First off, a Salem family is now offering a $50,000 reward for information about an unsolved murder. Travis Juten was stabbed to death in his own home on August 13th of last year. He lived in rural Marion County with his wife, who was also stabbed but survived. Authorities aren't saying anything about potential suspects. If you have any information, you're asked to contact the Marion County Sheriff's Office. We're also monitoring two fires. The first under investigation in downtown Portland at an apartment complex on Southwest 12th and Alder. The call came in just after 6 o'clock this morning. Crews arrived to find smoke and flames coming from a fifth-floor apartment, but the fire didn't spread and no one was hurt. No word yet how it started. In eastern Oregon, the Willow Creek wildfire has burned through 33,000 acres. The state fire marshal says it was first spotted yesterday 30 miles west of Ontario. Right now, it's 0% contained, but has not burned any structures and no one has had to evacuate. And finally, a heads up for anybody living on Sauvie Island or planning to visit. Crews are repairing two culverts along Reeder Road. The work is closing one lane, so the temporary stoplight will remain in place to regulate traffic. Crews are trying to get the work done in time for crowds over the 4th of July weekend. And those are some of your local headlines. Okay, before we dive back into the news, Rod, give us a little peek at the weather forecast.
Yeah, you know what? It's going to turn out to be a really nice afternoon. We still have cloudy skies up and down much of the coast. There's some folks out having fun. Looks like some pedaling vehicles on the beach right there from here comes some more, my goodness. Haystack Rock, Cannon Beach. There was a little bit of light rain at the coast early this morning. That rain chance is gone. And we do expect some clearing here for you folks this afternoon. Already nicely partly cloudy over downtown Portland. We're up to 67 degrees. Based on the sunshine at this hour, I've bumped the high temperature up a couple degrees to 77. Partly cloudy skies, really comfortable weather for you this afternoon. Brenda?
Rod, thank you. And he's going to be back in just a couple of minutes with some insight into this next story. We're talking about that heat dome last year that sent temperatures in Portland soaring to a record 116 degrees. Meteorologist Joe Ranieri spoke with climate scientists about the odds of that happening again.
Last summer's deadly heat wave was unlike anything we've experienced in our lifetimes here in the Pacific Northwest. 3 days of record-breaking heat, one right after another. June 26th, 108 degrees. June 27th, 112. And the hottest day ever recorded at the Portland International Airport, 116 degrees on June 28th.
The heat dome actually formed in conditions similar to previous heat waves that have hit the Pacific Northwest. So what that means is that we got this ridge of high pressure that kind of centered itself over kind of off of the west coast of Washington and Vancouver Islands.
Larry O'Neill is the state climatologist and associate professor at Oregon State University.
Mostly on the...
He said there were three things that made the heat dome so extraordinary.
This high pressure was just super large. It was very high intensity. It set records for basically how high the freezing level was.
During the summer, it's pretty common to see freezing levels jump up to over 10,000 feet.
And it was just the fact that the atmosphere below it was as warm as we've ever seen it.
Mount Hood stands at over 11,000 feet. Mount Rainier, the tallest peak in the Cascades, is at more than 14,000 feet in elevation. Over that 3-day stretch in June, records were shattered, including a freezing level at nearly 20,000 feet.
So if you were to take a flight from Eugene to Seattle, the plane will kind of level off at about 20,000 feet. And typically temperatures there are, minus 20 degrees Celsius or something like that.
The record-breaking temperatures also came during a time when the entire state of Oregon was under some kind of drought.
So spring last year, Oregon experienced its driest spring on record, March, April, May. And what that meant was that there was no water on their landscape basically to evaporate.
When water evaporates, it cools down the atmosphere, but there was nothing to cool us off with. Combine the heat we had with the parched landscape of the Northwest, there is only one way for our temperatures to go.
It was an unprecedented event, how warm it got. So 116 in Portland, 112 in Eugene, I think it was about 115 or so in Salem. And, people move to the Pacific Northwest because to escape that heat. They come from California or, places in the desert Southwest or from the South. They kind of come up here because it is so nice and calm.
O'Neill also contributes the heat dome to what else?
The third factor, of course, is climate change. The Earth is just steadily warming, and so we have this baseline that just keeps going up, and so that added a few degrees as well.
So could these heat waves be something we start seeing every summer?
Heat at that extreme level is unlikely, at least in the next couple of decades. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Statistically, temperatures that high are unlikely.
Erica Fleshman is the director of the Oregon Climate Change Research Institute. She doesn't believe we are going to see a heat wave like we saw in June of last year become the norm.
So there are likely to be more heat waves and of longer duration and of greater intensity.
Both O'Neill and Fleshman agree. While we are seeing temperatures warm on a global scale, that doesn't mean we're going to be seeing these extremes year after year just yet.
By the middle of the century, so by about 2050 or 2100, towards the end of the century, this event that we had might be something more like a 1 in 10 year event or 1 in 20 year event. So this is something that we could see multiple times during our lifetimes.
The challenging part, according to O'Neill, is going to be making sure models pick up on our warming climate.
And there have been discussions and maybe some indications from the data that perhaps the climate models are not warming up quick enough.
A challenge they have been noticing over the last several years.
Historical data record is not guiding us, is no longer a reliable guide, if ever it was, to what we can expect in the future.
What we do know for sure.
The important thing, I think, to keep in mind is not sort of, oh, well, it's unlikely to be 115 this summer or next summer or anything like that, but it is getting hotter steadily.
It's not just our summers here in the Pacific Northwest that are running warmer. It's across the globe where we are seeing temperatures climb year after year.
It's all interesting. Okay, you guys, we are just coming off our first heat wave of the summer. And Rod, now you have your eye on a second one.
Yeah, and I want to tie this potential second heat wave, Brenda, into the story that Joe just gave us. So this is a weather model map, what they call the European weather model, for the 9th day of July coming up. The big hot high right now looks like it could set up over the state of Utah. But notice the arrow, what we call the ridging, kind of the heat dome, if you will, could extend up through the Pacific Northwest and up into Canada and give us maybe another 3 days of 90-degree temperatures. The hottest we were this last time, of course, was 96 degrees on Sunday. So one additional point I want to make is that what happened a year ago that was so unusual, not that the atmosphere could produce such a heat dome, but it's where it produced it. It took this high, and instead of having it to our south over Utah, it put it right on top of us. And that's something we haven't seen before. And of course, that gave us that Phoenix, Arizona type heat of 116 that we hope, Brenda, we don't see for at least a few more decades down the road. Back to you.
Exactly, but great context, Rod. Thank you. Now to some of your other news. A former grade school principal from Damascus will spend almost 44 years in prison for sexually abusing 4 students in his office. Jeff Hayes worked for Deep Creek Elementary School from 2005 to 2009. Earlier this month, he was convicted of first-degree sexual abuse and sexual penetration. The judge ruled the prison sentence cannot be reduced for good behavior or for completing other programs behind bars.
Everybody that's from Portland should be sad because we lost a lot of people. We got a cloud over us, and we need to be all in it together, focus on gun violence intervention on every level.
There have been more than 645 shootings and 42 homicides in Portland this year. And as the weather heats up, there's often a surge in gun violence in cities nationwide. Lionel Irving from Love is Stronger, Inc. is hoping Mayor Ted Wheeler's new plan will curb gun violence this summer. Yesterday, Wheeler announced a team of violence prevention experts will lead a coordinated effort. It's called Safer Summer PDX. Irving hopes this new team will work with community organizations like his to make a difference. Now to the homeless crisis. We usually talk about the problem here in Portland, but this afternoon we are heading to Astoria. The city is restricting overnight camping between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. It's an effort to reduce the number of people sleeping outside local businesses and parks. Last week, Astoria passed the ordinance limiting the hours a person can sleep on public property. They can use sleeping bags and small tents and tarps, but they can't take up more than 50 feet of space. We talked about the change with the mayor and the executive director of Lifeboat Services.
It really sucks, in my opinion, it's inhumane. They're just moving people along, displacing people so they can be where? They can go to the next place to get displaced from?
From the perspective of the residents of our community, of our visitors, and our business owners, it's unacceptable to have people allowed to simply camp out for long periods of time directly in front of a small business.
The interim police chief says the new ordinance will help address the camping issues, but admits it's not a permanent solution. In July, the city will discuss a list of public places where camping will not be allowed.